Within the first 5 minutes of this interrogation, detectives already knew he was lying. It wasn't because of what he said, it was because of what he did. In the sterile, quiet interview room, the truth isn't always in words. It lives in the shadows of human behavior. A flicker of an eye, a tremor of a hand, a subtle shift of weight in a chair. For the trained observer, a conversation is more than information. It's a complex dance of nonverbal cues, a psychological map that can lead straight to deception. This is the story of a killer's carefully constructed narrative being dismantled, not by a confession, but by the silent language his own body couldn't help but speak. The air in the room is thick and heavy, each second drawn out by the tick of a clock on the wall. A man at a cold metal table, hands clasped tightly, knuckles white. His gaze drifts around the room, avoiding the steady, patient eyes of two detectives opposite him. He is here voluntarily, offering his cooperation, painting himself as the concerned partner, desperate for answers. He believes he's in control, measuring every word, but his control is an illusion. The detectives aren't just listening, they are watching the performance. Every pause, every gesture, every microscopic expression. The human mind, fabricating a reality, runs under immense cognitive load. It must invent details, maintain consistency, monitor the listener's reaction, suppress the truth. That mental juggling is exhausting. Cracks begin to appear in the facade. Small, almost imperceptible signals leak through. These are the tells. Involuntary signs of a mind at war with itself. For investigators, those signals are breadcrumbs forming a trail leading away from the rehearsed script toward the dark, unspoken reality of what happened. It's a hunt not for fingerprints, but for patterns guilt always leaves behind. This isn't a single dramatic gotcha. It's a slow, methodical deconstruction of a lie. An exploration of the psychology of deception. Not a fingerprint, a forced smile. We'll dissect the techniques investigators use to amplify psychological pressure, pushing cognitive limits until a fabricated world crumbles. We'll see how they turned his words and his actions against him, creating a trap with no escape. The truth didn't need to be forced out. It needed a stage. The interrogation room was that stage. The performance was about to begin. It began like any other Tuesday in November. The sky over the quiet suburban town of North Haven was a flat, unforgiving gray, and a cold wind stripped the last of the autumn leaves from the trees. For 28-year-old marketing coordinator Amelia Hayes, it was a day of deadlines and meetings. Friends and family described her as a creature of habit, a woman who found comfort in the predictable rhythms of her life. Her routine was a source of stability. A morning coffee from the same cafe, a brisk walk during her lunch break, and a phone call to her mother on her drive home from the office. But on this particular Tuesday, that comforting rhythm was broken, and the silence that followed was deafening. Amelia was last seen leaving her workplace at 5:15 p.m. Security camera footage captured her walking through the glass doors of the modern office building, a tote bag slung over her shoulder, a faint smile on her face as she looked down at her phone. She was heading towards the employee parking lot, a familiar journey she made every day. Her car, a modest blue sedan, was parked in its usual spot. But what happened between the office doors and her front door, just a 15-minute drive away, remains a void. The calls to her phone that evening, first from her boyfriend, then from her worried mother, went straight to voicemail. The pattern of her life had been abruptly and violently interrupted. By the next morning, a quiet unease had blossomed into full-blown panic. Amelia had not shown up for work. A first for the notoriously punctual employee. Her boss made the call to her mother, who confirmed she had not heard from her daughter since the previous morning. The family filed a missing persons report with the North Haven Police Department. Initially, the case was handled with routine procedure. Officers were dispatched to her apartment, a small but neat space that showed no signs of a struggle. Her mail was on the counter, her bed was made, and her cat was waiting patiently by its empty food bowl. Everything was exactly as it should be, except for the most important element. Amelia herself was gone. The first 24 hours in a missing persons case are critical, and the police moved quickly. They began canvassing her neighborhood, speaking to neighbors who reported nothing unusual. They checked local hospitals and reviewed more surveillance footage from the area around her work and home, searching for any sign of her blue sedan. Her friends were contacted, their voices a mixture of fear and disbelief. They all told the same story. Reliable, responsible, not one to disappear without a word. As the hours ticked by with no leads, a dark shadow began to creep over the investigation. The hope of a simple misunderstanding faded, replaced by the grim possibility that something terrible had happened on that short drive home. At the center of the growing storm was Liam Carter, Amelia's boyfriend of 2 years, 30-year-old, architect, calm demeanor, no criminal record. He appeared to be the picture of a devastated partner. He was the one who first raised the alarm, calling Amelia's mother after his own calls went unanswered Tuesday night. He told detectives he was worried when she didn't respond to his texts about dinner plans. He arrived at her apartment later that evening and found it empty. He assumed she had been held up at work. He assumed she had gone to visit a friend without telling him. He spent the night calling her, his anxiety growing with each unanswered ring, until he finally drifted off to sleep on her couch, waiting for the sound of her key in the door. Liam was cooperative from the very beginning. He willingly came to the station to provide a formal statement, his expression a mask of weary concern. He recounted his movements on Tuesday with precision, detailing his day at his architectural firm, a trip to the gym after work, his subsequent attempts to contact Amelia. He offered detectives full access to his phone, call logs, text messages, seemingly corroborating his story. He spoke of Amelia in glowing terms, their stable relationship, their plans for the future. To the initial investigators, he presented as a man caught in a nightmare, desperate to help find the woman he loved. His narrative was consistent. His emotions appeared genuine. His story had no obvious holes. He provided a detailed timeline of his evening, a chronology so specific it seemed rehearsed. He mentioned the exact time he left the gym, the specific podcast he listened to on his drive, the contents of the last text message he sent Amelia. This level of detail, while initially helpful, began to feel excessive to the seasoned detectives. It was as if he was presenting a pre-constructed alibi, carefully polished and ready for inspection. He painted a picture of a normal evening, one that just happened to intersect with a tragedy. He was the concerned boyfriend, playing his part perfectly, his performance almost convincing. But beneath the surface of his calm cooperation, subtle inconsistencies began to nag at investigators. While his words expressed desperation, his body language remained unusually composed. He rarely used Amelia's name, instead referring to her as she and as her. When asked about their last conversation, his focus was more on his own actions and feelings than on hers. These were not damning pieces of evidence, but small behavioral flags, like tiny cracks in a plaster wall. Not enough to name him a suspect, but enough to warrant a closer look. The detectives decided to invite Liam back for a more formal recorded interview, not as a suspect, but as the primary witness. The stage was being set.